More and double all kicking off, but the Orioles are the centerpiece of the town, at least until Joe Flacco gets under center or doesn't get under center in Cincinnati next week. This guy covers all things baseball and has for many, many years at the Washington Post, but don't let that fool you. He actually lives here in Baltimore, hon. He is a staff writer down at the Post. He is Dave Sheinin, one of our defending champions and favorite guests and all-time favorite baseball dudes to debate. Hey, dude, before I get to the Orioles and the Nationals, and we'll get to all that and ugly uniforms and the displacement of the Astros, you're an Olympics guy, right? Like, you know, you're one of a handful of guys that I know really well that's done a number of Olympics all over the earth. It's what you've done the last couple of decades. Give me a little lowdown on the Los Angeles American Olympics of 2026 or whatever this is.
Well, it's 2028. And, you know, I mean, I think Los Angeles, it was a critical bid for the USOC, because they had seen New York and Chicago get rejected in previous bids, and it may have been sort of a last straw for the USOC. I heard some sentiment that to the effect of, you know, if LA doesn't get picked, we're done with this whole process, we're out, which would have been obviously a major story, and it would have been you know, a scandal of sorts for the IOC. But, you know, it was a strong bid. I mean, if you remember, Boston originally won the U.S. bid to be the nominee for the 2024 games, and then the Boston bid got rejected by voters in Boston, and it got submarined. It was a huge black eye for the USOC. So L.A. was kind of the salvage bid, and it turned out to be the best bid they could have possibly put together because it didn't require a lot of new stadium construction. The LA had everything you would want already built. So
and one being built that maybe they didn't want.
Well, that's true too. That's true too. That one was already underway though. So, you know, and so what happened was Paris and LA put up very good, compelling bids for 2024, and the IOC, I would say smartly, decided to give them both an Olympics, with Paris getting 2024 and LA getting 2028. And I mean, you know, you could say what you want about the Olympics being bad for communities and being a money drain and all that stuff, and I'm not going to dispute any of that. But
you've reported most of that, not just disputed it. I mean, you've been one of the guys down in Brazil that I've talked to that said this is a disgrace, and one of those people that was over in Athens and in these baseball fields that are now all covered with weeds. I mean, I think everybody's seen that. You know, I don't know that, but I mean, for me, it's the corruption. It's just, you know, we talk about rubbing up against Russian mafia money, and you know how this whole thing kind of works, and the Qatar World Cup bid, and you know, I kind of thought the U.S. didn't want to be a party to it because the Boston people really knew how corrupt this thing was.
Well, I think that, you know, remember that you know, the USOC is part of this equation, but NBC is also a massive part of it. Obviously, NBC pays massive amounts of money to televise the Olympics. They wanted an Olympics in the U.S. For obvious reasons, and you know, that was a big driver in this as well. And yeah, it's corrupt. It's all money driven. But you know, I do think as a fan of sports and of the Olympics in particular, I mean, I think there's something cool about having an Olympics in your home country, you know, during your lifetime or during your adult lifetime. I mean, a lot of us were pretty young when the Atlanta games came through, and obviously very few of us remember even the '84 Los Angeles games.
So, I remembered it the minute Mary Lou Retton brought me ice cream in Houston at the Super Bowl. Believe me, I remember the '84 Olympics when that happened.
Yeah,
dude, you got to hear it. You can just go to YouTube. Just put WNST, you know, Nestor, Mary Lou Retton in, and it pops right up.
My God.
Mary Lou Retton brought me some ice cream. She was out there promoting Cold Stone. And, I mean, this was like literally everything stopped, you know, for me for about 12 minutes. And it was, you know, I mean, then I found out, dude, I found this. She's a Steelers fan. I found that out.
Oh, man. She was my 15-year-old crush, man.
Everybody's 15-year-old crush, dude. How did you know? I was 15 years old that summer. How did you know? Summer 1984. He is Dave Sheinin, and he is the Washington Post. We were blabbering on about the Olympics because it's what he does, and he knows the stuff. Anything else you want to say before we do baseball, Dave? I want you to leave it all out on the table. You good?
Let's get to baseball, man. Yes.
How about them Orioles? Something magic happens. You know what's magic to me? And I talked to Luke about this, and I just want to, butter it up a little bit because I know you know Jim Palmer, and we see Jim Palmer around, and Jim's still 28, except that he's like 72 now, and he doesn't do the games anymore, like really, you know what I mean? And I feel like we're getting toward the real twilight. Like, I still feel like U2 has a couple of more tours, but I am concerned about this Springsteen and Broadway thing that, like, we are getting toward the end for all of this, Mick Jagger and all of this, and I really feel like that with Palmer. Like, I feel like he's going to be doing less baseball, and when he does it, it's so noticeably better, like when the Orioles run themselves out of innings twice in the first 3 innings on Monday night. Palmer gets steamed about that, and there's something about that I love because no one else has the balls to do that on the MASN television network.
That's a great point, and I hadn't really considered that about the twilight of the Palmer years. It very well could be the case. I know he's doing a much reduced schedule this year. I don't see that going back in the other direction. So, and yeah, I mean, I tell you what, when it comes to pitching insight, I don't know that there's a better, more insightful broadcaster in the game in the entire country than Palmer. I always enjoy listening to a game when he's calling it.
I don't want to go to the game when he's doing it. And then somebody offered me free tickets Monday night. I'm like, Palmer's doing the game. I'd rather sit on the couch with him. That being said, the nights that Jim Hunter and Mike Bordick are there, I mean, I'm putting Guy Fieri on or something. I'm watching reruns or John Oliver, so I don't know. I mean, it's really noticeable, though. And as somebody that watches all the games on TV, because I don't have my press credential, Dave, I really do notice it. But on to that, there's not much to criticize lately, though, right? I mean, legitimately, what Machado has done, what Buck has done with this sort of six-man rotation, even though half of these guys stink, they're in the race, man. I don't know that you could ask for more Labor Day than having this kind of homestand going on right now.
Oh, no, absolutely. They are absolutely in the race. They're playing right now the way I think everybody envisioned them playing in April and May and June when they were, April they were good, but let's say May, June, July when they were just not a very good baseball team. I mean, I think you're seeing a lot of underperforming guys throughout the whole season, guys like Goffman and Miley and, yes, Machado, finding their level. Water finds its level, and there's, individual cases why guys were underperforming for so long, but whatever the reasons, they've, found what they were looking for. And then you add the shortstop, which has been just a complete drain on the offense all year long. And now all of a sudden in Tim Beckham, you have somebody who is not only a dynamic bat, but a guy who can play leadoff or hit leadoff. And this is actually a really good-looking team right now.
The Beckham thing's crazy. I mean, there's so much that's been crazy about all this. And I think I talked to you right around the All-Star break, and at that point, it was looking like they would be in sell mode. I think they had just announced through Ken Rosenthal that, the pitchers were for sale. And then they wind up buying, kind of strangely. The Hellickson thing goes down, and I think we're scratching our head. The Beckham thing goes down, and we're like, well, I mean, so much for dealing Britton and Machado, and they're going to go all in and probably finish third place, in the second wild card hunt at that point. And they've breathed new life into this. Dude, there's something savantish about Duquette, and this Beckham thing. You and I have been at this a long time, Shine. In 25 years, we've been at this. Every year, there's this rumor and that rumor. We're going to get this guy, and we're going to go get this ace, and we're going to deal this guy off. And they come in and they hit 251, and they're not really a huge factor. The Zeals and the Incavillas and the Lonnie Smiths, and go through all of that. This will never happen again. To deal for some guy that I called a quad A player, by the way. That's what I called him the day that the trade happened. And for him to hit 400 for a month and a half at a point when the team really needs people to step up. This is an unprecedented trade, right? I mean, this won't happen again.
I mean, I can't see it happening. And I don't know how much you can actually give Duquette and the front office credit for. I mean, I don't think anybody foresaw him hitting 400 for a month and a half. I mean, they may have just caught him at a time in his career when he got hot. It may have just been no more than that, just good fortune. Although a lot of guys, and Tim Beckham may be one of these guys, I mean, the change of scenery thing is a real thing. And you can get buried in a place that you've been your whole career. And Tim Beckham, I mean, has the pedigree as a former number 1 overall draft pick. We all know that. And for whatever reason, his track record in Tampa Bay was not very good. But there was always an atom there, a germ of talent that you knew was there. And maybe the Orioles, just got lucky and tapped into it.
This is an amazing thing this year to see the Bridwells and the Rodriguezes and the Davies. And, I mean, the Seattle's got one. We can go through all of these names of guys that probably would have looked pretty good on this team, and yet as much as we want to bitch about it, wherever we are with our Trumbos and our Seth Smiths and our bloated Chris Davis contract, and every once in a while, I mean, he was a contributor, he'll be a contributor down the line, they're still, I don't want to say in the catbird seat because they still have big games against big teams, but boy, the Boston thing was a wake-up over the weekend that they're in this, and if they can go sweep Boston, I can't rule out a parade just yet. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, that was the moment, I think, that a 3-game sweep of the Red Sox at Fenway Park when, the Red Sox are fighting still for the division title. I think at that point, the Yankees had gotten to within 2 or 3 games of them. I mean, the Red Sox are a real good team. And I think this was the moment where, everybody had to wake up and realize the Orioles are still in this thing. Now, I mean, I still don't think it's likely that they're going to get a wild card. I mean, I think that there's still too much competition. I think their schedule works against them. But, they're not out of this by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, and part of that is Machado hitting 400 as well. And, we've talked about how much money he's going to get, where he's going to get it. But the last time you and I talked literally, and it feels like a minute and a half ago, dude was hitting like 215. I mean, I can roll back the tape. It's kind of uncanny, and this has been a real cash grab for him, right? Like, the back of his bubblegum card in our vernacular, it's all been washed away, right? I mean, in the end, this is going to be a solid season where he got them into the race, and no matter how this winds up, he came to life.
Well, I mean, he was hemorrhaging tens of millions of dollars at midseason. I mean, with his batting average down around 215 and his power numbers down and strikeouts up and on-base percentage and all that, I mean, he was going from a potential $400 million guy to, all right, let's not cry for him. I mean, he was maybe going to be half that or something. I mean, he's still going to be 26 years old when he hits free agency and all that. But in that free agent class with Bryce Harper and Josh Donaldson and possibly Clayton Kershaw, you have to put up the numbers to get the big dollars because there's only a limited number of teams that are going to be playing in that neighborhood.
Dude, no one wants to see 220 on the back of your bubblegum card when you're 25, right? Like, literally.
So Machado has added back tens of millions of dollars in future contracts based on the way he's played the last couple of months.
How'd you like those pajamas over the weekend, Dave? Mr. Miami, right? I mean, no controversy or anything going on there, right?
I mean, I feel like a get off my lawn guy here, but an old man. But get off my lawn, man! I don't want to watch baseball in those things, man. I did not enjoy that very much.
Yeah, nor did I, and I didn't hate them specifically. And I've talked about this a little bit, and you're one of my traditionalist guys, so I'll let you do your get off my lawn rant if you wish, because I did one. The get off my lawn part is, Jackie Robinson last a week, and I don't know who's even on the field. I mean, I don't want to say it's not a nice tribute and all that, but I don't enjoy watching those games where everybody's wearing the same uniform, and I can't figure out who the hell is who, especially early in the year. Then you got blue, then you got pink, then you got military, then you got red, white, and blue, then you got throwback to this and throw ahead to this, and then they wear them all for 3 days now, and then you have your alternative ugly Scott Erickson, pajamas on Friday night, and it's too much. I mean, I like them all individually for a minute. Wearing them for a weekend and whoring them out, it's too much, man. It's not one, it's everything for me.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you got at what this is all about. It's about cash. It's about a money grab. It's about selling merchandise to everybody who has bought, every conceivable uniform combination already, and now let's sell them one more. I remember chuckling when those ads came on towards the end of the broadcast Sunday. You can buy your own, Players Weekend uniform tops at MLB.com, and there it is. We're trying to sell merchandise. That's all what this is all about.
Yeah, and I don't know that it could possibly, for how much they put into it, that it could possibly ring the cash register to that degree. Other than those ugly Steelers jail suits that all Yins and Nat bought up in Pittsburgh and they still wear them out, I don't see a lot of the blue or the pink or the military. I just don't see them popping up. I mean, they're $250 a throw. At the end of the weekend, what did they sell? A couple hundred of those things? I mean, literally. I mean, I can't imagine that really rings the meter for all the work and the design and the promotion that they put into it. But, the thing that was weird for me were the nicknames, right? That the players think it's cool to put Swaggy T on the back of their shirt. I don't know. Isn't it just good enough that you make $10 million a year? Literally, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that if MLB were a little more lenient about some of the smaller things that players like to do, if you want to write somebody's name or a nickname on your cleats or on the back of your cap to pay tribute to, a friend who died or something like that. I mean, go ahead and let them do that, but just leave the backs of the uniforms, kind of sacred.
There you go. Dave Scheinen, who treats the game of baseball sacred except when he's cheering for the designated hitter and interleague play and games that finish in 9 innings. You can follow him at Dave Scheinen on Twitter as well as at the Washington Post. He's running around with baseball. All right, some global baseball observations here. And, look, the Ravens are playing in New Orleans. We got this crazy storm going on. The storm and the Houston Astros in Major League Baseball, the season has now been altered, right? I mean, the storm will be a part of this season, and I know we're going to have lives lost, and we're just talking about the toy department in baseball here, but this is a big baseball story that's in the middle of this weather story in Houston, and whatever the future holds there, and certainly, you and I who've seen this before, this is just an ugly episode this week, man.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, aside from what it's done to the Astros schedule and some of the logistical problems, I mean, these players, have families. They have small children in some cases who are either living in Houston or have been displaced. There's a lot on their minds right now. And then, you add on top of that the logistical hurdles of going on the road and losing 6 home games. And essentially taking on a 3-week road trip here, right in the meat of the schedule as the races heat up. Now, they have the luxury of a huge lead, but they have a lot to play for. I mean, their lead for the top seed in the AL is shrinking. The Red Sox are on their tail. The Indians are on their tail. These are meaningful games for the Astros, and yeah, it's a tough situation for them.
Dave Scheinen joining us here from the Washington Post. All right, Dave, I'm giving you $1. It's not a real dollar. It's a fake dollar. It's a WNST dollar. You got to put it on one of the 7 teams here in the American League for the second wild card, assuming that you still have the Yankees. But, boy, there's a lot at stake in those 9 innings, though. Not just getting into the playoffs, but if you're an Oriole fan or an Oriole follower in any way, the notion of 9 innings at Yankee Stadium, 1 game mano a mano for all the marbles, that's kind of a tasty little evening. I was saying to Luke earlier this week, I better clear that night on the schedule and make sure there's no Ravens events or anything going on. Right. That's going to be must-see TV, right?
Right, absolutely. And, I mean, going against the Yankees, and I assumed that they would throw Severino in that game. That's a tough assignment for a wild card. And to go backwards here, I mean, that's one reason why I never felt it was a great idea to go crazy and become buyers at the trade deadline when all you're playing for is the wild card, because it's such a crapshoot. That one game, going on the road, especially, at Yankee Stadium against Severino, that's why you don't mortgage the future for the wild card. And, the Orioles only obviously, made a couple of minor moves and didn't give up anybody they're going to regret losing. But $1 to put on a wild card winner, I would probably go with the Minnesota Twins.
Wow. Dude, you're the 5th guy I've asked this week, and everybody's had a different answer. Literally.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something about that team that, they were sellers at the trade deadline, but it somehow brought them together in a counterintuitive sort of way. I think that, playing in the AL Central, they have the benefit of, outside of the Indians, it not being a very strong division. They probably, I haven't crunched the numbers, but I'm guessing their schedule is more favorable than, let's say, the AL East teams. I just love, and Byron Buxton is an amazing young player and has finally, I think, reached his potential. I just love that team. I spent some time around them a few weeks ago, and I love what they're doing.
I love Paul Molitor. I've always loved Paul Molitor, right? As a player, as a media dude back in the 90s when I was in the media, I got to talk to him a little bit at the end of his career when he was a sage kind of guy and had been through all his trials and tribulations in Milwaukee. He's an easy guy to root for, right?
Oh, absolutely, and a smart guy, a smart manager, has the command of the clubhouse. I mean, gosh, I just think that team has been put together well, and maybe they were, it's a year ahead of schedule. I think maybe next year they were really looking to turn it on and become big-time contenders. But, we've seen teams arrive a year early, and I just think the Twins could be very dangerous if they could get in.
Hey, man, always a pleasure to visit with you, and certainly a pleasure to be talking about real baseball here during the fake football season, and certainly getting up on the Labor Day weekend. The Orioles have been something, haven't they? I mean, you just counted them out because you just took the Twins, so you didn't count them in, but this has been a much more interesting summer than we thought when they were running everybody out there with 80 ERAs 8 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is what this is what you live for as a baseball person. A pennant race. You get to Labor Day, and your team is in it. And to be honest with you, just being the Washington Post baseball writer and having the Nationals looking like a potential World Series contender if they could get past the Dodgers, and now having the Orioles in the region as well. Knocking on the door of the wild card. I mean, it's a great time to be a baseball writer and a baseball fan in this area.
We'll be on it. I'll be checking back with you at some point when we stack these teams up, and I'll let you put your dollar on the Orioles once they make the wild card day, because we got to be positive around here. I mean, you know me, I'm a homer at heart, right?
Of course,
you got to be. You're a homer as well. Dave Sheinin lives here in Baltimore, but writes for the Washington Post, so be nice to him. He's the national baseball writer and covering all things out there, as well as an Olympic sage as well. You can find him at Dave Sheinin, staff writer for the Washington Post. You can find me out on Twitter as well, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere the internet travels, including our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. It's all powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And, of course, we live in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault. Anything you want to listen to, when you want, where you want, how you want. The kids call it podcasting these days. We call it the BuyAToyota.com audio vault. We're going to be over in London the day before the big game on Saturday from 11 till 3, doing a march, doing a cable car ride over the Thames to the O2 Arena where Led Zeppelin once reunited. The only time they reunited, really, was at the O2 Arena, so we shall have a pint in the honor of James Page and Robert Plant. It'll be a good time. We'll do one for John Paul Jones and Bonzo as well, but that's 4 pints. That's a lot of pints, but it's a Saturday in London. Join us. All the details up at WNST.net. If there's any breaking news this weekend, not if, when, because there will be. Ravens are making cuts. Orioles are adding players. WNST Tech Service is there. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis Colatzos will be here this Thursday, next Thursday, every Thursday, getting you ready for football around here. The SSV on WNST. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.